Thanks for your interest in 3D thinking. You know, most of us grew up with the concept of think outside the box. And yet, the problem, as we know it, is inside the box. So we've become a business organization, a worldwide organization, that is coming up with the answers to the wrong problems. The problem is inside the box. 3D thinking addresses the 3 Ds of problem solving. First D is the depth of your knowledge. Go inside the box. Move the components apart. And often, when you move the components away from one another, the answer may be found because it was hidden in the shadows. Second, look outside. When you're inside the box, you can turn and look at your target audience. You have a different perspective because you're inside the problem, looking out at the market that may or may not be willing to pay for the solution. Second D is distance. And lastly, it's our determination. We often come up with a solution. We often identify a market. And then we get distracted. Don't let the third D be distractions. Make the third D determination. And once you've determined that I'm the right speaker, give me a call. You know, we've been talking about 3D thinking, and I'd like to share with you a personal example of how I used going inside the box to discover the solution. I was operating a retail store in a building that was 20 feet wide by 180 feet deep. Because it had such a big, wide, 180-foot side to it, I decided I would paint a sign on it naming my business so passers-by would know where I was located. I called the sign painter, and the sign painter informed me that I needed permission from the city to erect this sign. I called the city. The city said absolutely not. We only allow signs that are on the front of the building, which meant a 20-foot sign versus a 180-foot sign. So I called the sign painter back and I said, you know what, I'd like to talk about another idea. I'd like to put a billboard on my roof. He said, well, you're going to need the permission from the city. So once again, I went to the city and I pled my case. You may not put a sign on your roof. I said, it's not a sign, it's a billboard. Ah, Mr. Feldman. If it's a billboard, it must advertise someone else's business. Now the logic of this escaped me. What difference did it make what the content was of a billboard or a sign? What difference did it make if you called it a sign or a billboard? Well, to the city fathers, a sign advertised my business, a billboard advertised someone else's business. I thought about it. I pondered. I went inside the box. I looked outside at the passers-by, and I determined the solution. I went to the building next door, which was the mirror image, albeit a flip side, of the 20-foot wide, 180-foot deep, and I asked if I could rent his roof. I explained my dilemma. I could not put a billboard on my roof, but I indeed could put a billboard on his roof with information about my business. And as you can imagine, the passers-by wouldn't really notice which side of the roof it was on, and they would see my rather large sign, which really was a billboard for someone else. Now, you'd think the story is over and I had won, but I hadn't. 2-3 days later, I was walking out late at night, looked up to admire my billboard, and realized that in the darkness, you couldn't see my new creation. So once again, I called, and the sign company referred me to an electrician. And the electrician said, congratulations, very clever, but you have another problem. To get a lighted billboard, you need to have permission from the city. And quite frankly, Mr. Feldman, I don't believe that you will get it. So once again, I went into the box and I came up with the solution. Why couldn't I put lights on my roof aimed at my neighbor's roof, and accidentally his billboard got in the way? So my lighted sign for my building was one of the first solutions I ever came up with using 3D thinking. Try and apply those 3 principles to every problem you have. 1, depth. 2, distance. And 3, determination.